Well, data centers take a big step back in the state of Texas, and that is not a good thing. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Welcome to the big show. So the problem we have here is we have gotten in the way of people trying to invest in our state. And I really don't know how the message has been so effective in getting people to take stances that don't align with their values on this one. But here we are. The latest was a huge data center that was projected for our friends over in Henderson County, the Cedar Creek Reservoir. That's that big lake with like Gun Barrel City and Maybank and stuff on it. And it's going to be a big, huge investment. Listen, I don't see a whole lot of other people investing billions of dollars into Henderson County, not to slight the Athens Hornets or the Maybank Panthers or anything. But I don't know. Y'all are celebrating running off investments? Like everything about this just feels wrong, sounds wrong, economically speaking is wrong. The technically speaking is wrong. When it comes to national security, it's wrong. Like everything. And it's, am I in the minority on this one? I don't think I am. But for so many of the people out there, you look like WBAP listeners. You're in rural East Texas. I'm sure your Trump voters are at least sympathetic to Team Red. Why are you spouting the exact same talking points and economic nonsense as Bernie Sanders, AOC, and the Chinese Communist Party? Don't you think it's a little suspicious that for the first time in your life, you're getting positive coverage from the news? This is the first time. Everything else you've done in your entire life, they've come out and they've mocked you and made fun of you and derided you and lied about you. Did they say nice things about you when you were rallying with the Tea Party? Did they say nice things about you when you supported Trump? Do they say nice? Oh, now that they say nice things about you, you're not suspicious about that. So here's WFAA.
Data centers don't vote. We, the people, vote.
On the south steps of the Capitol in Austin, a crowd with one demand for state leaders.
Hang on a second. So we've already got the setup here. You're about to get the anti-data center minute here. This is a minute and a half report. This is going to be told from the point of view of people who oppose data centers. You're going to get all of their talking points. Everyone he interviews is going to be against data centers. You're going to get a 100% biased report here. There's going to be a little clip in there from some guy that's pro data center in the hearing, but it's only to shoot him down. That doesn't make you suspicious. You don't feel like this is you don't recognize the blatant propaganda. I don't care if Sid Miller is all of a sudden scared of data centers. I don't trust him either. Just because he's on Team Red, that doesn't inoculate him from saying wrong things.
Democrat or Republican issue. This truly is a Texas issue.
Yeah, and you're ruining Texas. You're running off billions of investments in Texas. It's not like they're not going to build that data center. They're just going to take that money, that wealth, and it's going to go elsewhere. We are losing because y'all ran off this data center.
State Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller wants a pause on the biggest data centers until Texas writes new rules.
See, be suspicious. We have 621 data centers in Texas. Does Sid Miller tell you all the negative consequences from the 600? Is he saying we need new rules because all this other stuff has been ruined from data centers? Or no, the 622nd one, that's going to be the bad one? Why do we need new rules? The rules for this first 621 seem to be working just fine. Where did this newfound interest in regulating and hyper-control, centralized government control of industry, socialists, where is this coming from?
It comes as Nan Michelle Anderson and her neighbors declare victory.
And because I had, a bell and a longhorn, I think that...
See, when the data center opponents get what they want, it's labeled by the news as a victory. That's not a victory for you, the people who use data centers. That's not a victory for the company who is going to invest the money. That's not a victory for the taxpayers of Henderson County who are going to get to spend that money. Who's this a victory for? The opponents, the people who agree with Bernie Sanders and AOC.
Got people's attention.
The developer Diode walked away from a massive data center project proposed just beyond the gates of her 160-acre ranch in...
Did they walk away or were they ran off?
Rural Henderson County. Opponents said it could draw 5 million gallons of water a day from nearby Cedar Creek Lake.
Yeah, so why is that a big deal? How many millions of gallons are in Cedar Creek? Did you look it up? Would that change anything? Is that 1% of the lake? Is that 50% of the lake? Why don't you bring it up? Oh, because that wouldn't sound as much as if you put it in proportion. You just want to say the big number.
Anderson was part of an organized opposition campaign.
Being on the news, I think that people hearing the story, seeing the story made all the difference in the world.
Yes, the propaganda is working. You're right. There's no actual tangible effect, so they have to tell you scare stories, and that is working. She's right there. They're not showing you like the aquifer that's dried up. They're not showing you the farmland that's been ruined. They're not showing you the negative consequences that are promised. Did you have brownouts or blackouts? It's like 1,100 degrees today. Oh, it's supposed to strain the grid. Any blackouts? Any problems? No. So all of their predictions have been wrong. And we have 621. You can't point to the horror story that they've already created, but you're making up stories and you're organizing. And the news is so biased. That should be proof positive enough that something's going on here.
Governor Abbott pointed to the withdrawal as proof his standard works in a statement saying, quote, Diode did the right thing by withdrawing their project.
How do you know that's the right thing? The right thing wouldn't be to withdraw their project. Even by your own standards, the right thing would just be make a different closed loop water cooling system. Your rules worked. Your rules ruined business. Your rules took billions of dollars of investments and also billions of dollars of wealth that it's going to generate, millions of dollars of tax revenue it's going to generate, and you're forcing that to go elsewhere. That's a loss, sir.
The company framed it as its own decision, saying it would pursue other Texas sites using water-efficient closed-loop cooling. But Miller said it's no victory.
It is welcome news, but it really doesn't solve the problem. One out of hundreds.
Anderson worries nothing has really changed.
Nothing to really prevent something similar coming in and doing the same thing.
Diode is gone, but the land
Why
is
is that
still
bad?
for sale. And across Texas, the next fights are already lining up. In Dallas, I'm Luke Clary.
You should be really suspicious about the one-sided nature of that reporting. Did you hear anybody who was saying my side of the argument on that? Is it really news? Are you really being informed? Are you really informed? If you are only hearing one side of the debate, you didn't hear anything contrary to the debate? You sure that counts as news? Are you sure you count as informed? Now, if you're open to data centers, then you're not taking any offense to that at all. If you're one of these anti-data center people, it's going to be tough to admit that you have been duped by misinformation, but I need you to go ahead. And no one's going to make fun of you. We're going to welcome you over. Hey, I've been duped before too. We all make these mistakes, but we need to come off it because you sound like Bernie Sanders. You sound like AOC. Bernie.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and I understand what is at stake. That is why today we are announcing legislation to impose a moratorium on the construction of new AI data centers.
Congrats, data center opponents. You are doing the bidding of Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Chinese Communist Party, and all of America's enemies. You're hamstringing investment, wealth creation, and you're doing it through socialist policies, foregoing your capitalist principles. And you're still, and I'm not winning. I can't believe I'm not winning everybody over with these arguments. I can't believe people still disagree with me. David in Hubbard, you're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I live in the country where we have a data center that's going in our neighborhood. We have been overrun by wind turbines, solar farms, and now a data center, and it is completely destroying the countryside. And
Yeah, you know what? I went through Hubbard just like 3 weeks ago, and I remember a long time ago when I worked in Waco, I used to drive that way, and there wasn't, when I would go back and forth between Buck Tussle and Waco, there wasn't any windmills. And then there was a stretch of like 30 miles where they were all over the place, and they're huge and they're ugly. And man, I get the windmill complaint. So yeah, and that was new to me. How long have them? When did they build those windmills there on Hubbard? I was on 31.
They went in operation in 2021.
I hate those. That looks so bad. I feel so sorry for y'all on that one.
Yeah. By the way, the solar farms are even worse. And the data centers have bought up thousands of acres of what used to be productive ranch land for raising cattle. And by the way, if you don't like the price of what your beef cost you at the supermarket, you should connect the dots, because all of that is related. But the farmland in the countryside is being destroyed by what you're claiming to be really good things for our society. And I'm just going to tell you, I couldn't disagree with you more about whether you think data centers are a good thing, because they're just as harmful as the windmills and the solar farms.
Are you calling me on a smartphone?
No.
You got a flip phone?
No, I have a smartphone. Hang on just a second.
Go throw it in the lake then. Go throw it in the lake, you bunch of hypocrites. That's what I'm talking about, data. You know how much of and thank you very much for your call. I don't mean to be so mean, David. I'm not trying to take it out on you. Just kind of got to take a break here. The idea that we're running out of land. We can't build data centers because we're running out of land. Really? Drive to Abilene, tell me we're running out of land. Drive to Lubbock, tell me we're running out of land. You sound like the people were like, well, we can't drill for oil. We got all this pristine farmland. Or no, we can't build. Stop it. You sound like them. Do you realize what you sound like? We're not running out of land to build data centers. We have plenty of land. Price of beef is going up because we've got what, 100-acre farm for a data center? That's it? We're out of places for cows to graze? You know how much of the land mass is actually has improvements on it, is either urbanized or has roads or infrastructure? It's 2%. If you want to really stretch the definitions, include like residences out in the middle of nowhere, it's about 4% of our land is actually being used, 96% unused. We are not out of land for data centers. We'll continue this next. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey, I'm getting beat up over data centers again. Isn't this great? I'm James Parker. It's the James Show, News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. Your home for the WBAP morning show. Check them out whenever you wake up until Matlock takes over. Listen, let me play this clip just to let you know I'm not the only guy. There's a really smart guy, really well-respected guy, a guy who has a much longer track record and history of being right, a guy who can probably admit is smarter than me. Mark Levin, he comes on right after me. This was him May 14th on his show talking about data centers.
Selling out America? I mean, that's what Bernie Sanders does every day. That's what the Democrats do every day. You know, Bernie Sanders and AOC have a great idea, Mr. Producer. You know those huge buildings where they have all those computers? We call it the cloud, we call it data centers and those sort of things. Well, Bernie Sanders and AOC have a proposed bill to freeze the building of these centers, which would immediately kill AI and other technological advances and hand the whole kit and caboodle over the communist Chinese. And you don't hear Schumer talk about that now, do you? Now, this is the enemy within. They literally want to hand AI over to the communist Chinese. You got it? You think I'm kidding? Remember also the reports from Fox Digital that the so-called Democratic Socialists of America, DSA, in other words, American little commie bastards, remember when they went over there and met with China? They went to conferences in China. Where else did they go? Venezuela, when Maduro was in charge of it. Where else did they go? To Cuba. They went there too. Why do I use that pronunciation? Because that's Bernie Sanders' pronunciation. I assume he knows what he's talking about when it comes to communism. We literally have these Marxists selling us out from within. Members of Congress. And this dumb, you know what, this Chuck Schumer sits there and is attacking Trump. Going to sell us out. Look at all the billionaires he brings with. So what if he brings billionaires? So what? These are the titans of industry who can make a big difference for our country, creating jobs, creating services, creating things that we want, new technologies in medicine and God knows what else. Why do we attack our most successful industries? Why do we attack our most successful people when the rest of the world wants to emulate us? Why is that? They're stealing our technology overseas while we're creating it, and we're creating it despite Bernie Sanders and AOC and these other reprobates. They literally want to turn AI over to the communist Chinese by a federal law limiting our ability to build these facilities and the energy needed to run them. I mean, this is just unbelievable. We just need to import more Islamists, don't you know? Yeah, that'll be
All right. So that was from Mark Levin, May 14th of this year. You heard it here on WBAP. So it's not just me. Now, I'm going to go to the phones. We're talking about data centers. Everyone wants to talk about data centers. I don't know if they agree or disagree, so this is kind of a Russian roulette. Let's find out the hard way. Hey, Cheryl in Cleburne, you're on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP.
Hello. I'm a Texan. I love my Texas. I'm not against growth and production. I just don't want a data center near where I live or where I can see it.
Yeah, so part of the discussion that I will actually have sympathy toward is not data center specific. If someone wants to build a hot dog factory next to you, you wouldn't want that either, right?
No.
Okay, yeah. So they're
Have you seen the Amazon building down in Cleburne?
No, not the one in Cleburne.
It takes up half the sky. I use Amazon. I use my phone. I understand the need for these things. It's just if it's near me.
Okay, but listen, I enjoy having that conversation, but that's not a data center specific conversation. Because I make the analogy like, you like chicken nuggets? Well, we have to build the chicken plant somewhere. And so wherever they buy the property and build the plant, I know it's gonna stink. Now, so we have to build them somewhere. Someone's going to get screwed in the deal, but that's not anything that's necessarily specific to data centers. That's just a problem with property rights and buying a big chunk of property.
In Bug Tussle?
Pardon, one?
Next to you? Do you want one in Bug Tussle next to you?
Sure, I don't care. Build one in Bug Tussle next to me.
Okay.
What, you think you're going to catch me in like a 22 there? Come on, I've played this game. Carrie in Flower Mound, you're next up on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP.
Hi, James. How are you?
Hey, Carrie.
Well, I disagree with you, and I think that you and Levin make a wonderful case for it, but I really don't want to see a federal law, but I would like the local people to be able to decide. And the hot dog analogy that you gave, I get that, but I do think that there probably are enough places that would welcome it, that if the people don't want it and the voters are against it, I kind of have a problem with that.
Yeah, I have a comment here from Ann over on Facebook, longtime James Show listener. She just says NIMBY. It's the same old thing, NIMBY.
Yeah.
And
it is.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm glad you could admit that, because if someone calls in and they, like the last lady said, do you want a data center built next to your house? I really wouldn't mind. But if someone said, do you want a landfill built next to your house? I would mind. However, I create trash. I use trash. I'm not going to go stop landfills from being built, period. And actually, if one was built next to me, I would probably just bite the bullet and move. Now, would I take a loss on the house? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it's got quite a bit of gain since I bought it just 6 years ago. But, you know, that's just got to roll with the punches. We have our own private property rights. And if we want to maintain ours, we got to let them maintain theirs. If these big companies want to come in and buy 400 acres and put a data center on it, we just got to accept there's only so much we can do through the government to prevent people from developing their private property however they see fit. But thank you for being very reasonable about it, Carrie. 800-288-9227. I got a few more people that want to beat me up about data centers. Coming up next on The James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, who wants to hear a bunch of people be wrong about data centers? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Remember the WBAP morning show. Also remember that Donald Trump's going to be in town for the Republican midterm convention on September 9th and 10th next door to at the AAC. Also, user EF7 sent me a message, said, any update on Sammy Lee and the potential hate crime charges for the women who attacked her? Can we get a follow-up at some point? She's referring to a hate crime. I mean, it's very obviously on observation a hate crime. There hasn't been legally filed hate crime charges as of yet, but I appreciate the reminder. So I texted the dad of the friend who was with Sammy Lee that night and also one of the witnesses. And if he texts me back or something, that's a worthy check-in question. Thank you very much for a thoughtful comment there, user E7. I don't think that's his Christian name, but that was just interrupting this data center conversation that we're having, because Governor Greg Abbott a couple weeks ago said he's got some new policies on data centers to make sure they don't use too much water or electricity. And so in response to that, a big multi-billion-dollar data center investment for Henderson County has withdrawn. So I guess you got your wish, Greg Abbott. They're not going to use more water than you want. They're not going to use any. So you made the law. The data center did not conform to your law. We just lost business. Best case scenario is that goes to another state in the United States. Worst case scenario, that goes to China. But fighting this data center stuff makes me want to pull my hair out, because you're buying into the propaganda here. Wait a second. It's going to use all the water in our aquifer. It's going to destroy our electrical grid. Oh, okay. Were these the people who told you to wear a mask? Were these the same people that told you Jussie Smollett got beat up? Were these the same people that said Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation? I mean, why do you still believe these people? These are the people that a year and a half ago were telling you the stock market was going to crash and we're going to be in a recession. Look, stock market's at all-time high, and we've had nothing but positive GDP growth since they said that. If they're wrong about everything else, what makes you think they're right about this? And then I will put on my raincoat and go back to the phones. John in Bristol, you're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP.
Yo, James, how you doing?
Yo, John.
Love your show. Been listening to WBAP since I grew up in the 70s.
Is there a butt coming?
I don't agree with Kezia or Bernie. My only issue with the data centers and everything else is they're taking up good farm and ranch and growing land here now.
What percentage of our arable cattle or farmland has been taken by data centers? Is it even 1% yet?
It's too much.
Well, what's the intolerable amount? What is the John in Bristol threshold for too much land area being taken up by data centers?
Well, for this one that I looked at, one data center was going to take up 600 acres just to put their solar panels out there on. Oh, you can't grow nothing on solar panels.
Yeah, so they can't win. So they get criticized if they have a small footprint, because then everybody can see them and you can hear them and they make noise and they're going to suck up all the water and electricity. So they expand it. They put a little buffer so they're not bothering anyone else, and they're going to add some of their own power generation to the grid, and they still get criticized. It sounds like they just can't win.
If they can generate their own power without taking up so many acres, that'd be fine. Nothing grows under them solar panels.
That's it. You're against data centers because the amount of acreage they take up. Do you even think it's 0.1% of our arable land is being occupied by data centers right now?
I don't have a clue.
I think it might be maybe less than 1% of 1%.
Well, it may be to start with.
Okay. I don't think that's a rational argument, John. I really don't.
How many thousands of acres of Texas arable land are being taken up by development and these other centers, whatever they...
Yeah, we were just having this... I was having this discussion like last week with some other people online. The amount of land on planet Earth that is being occupied by human structures is about 2%.
Well, that's good. They can go out of Texas.
All right, we've got plenty of land, John. We got plenty. I'm going to take some other callers. Thank you for calling. Thank you for being nice about it. Appreciate that. Kendall and Thorndale, you're on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP.
James, thank you for taking my call. Alcoa shut down in 2008. There's 31,000 acres, and we have the water. And it's going to Samson, San Antonio. And the other thing, there's a data center over there. So that data center, we have the power line because it was a coal-fired generating. And so...
Wait, hang on. Kendall, you worked at an Alcoa plant?
There's an Alcoa plant. No, I'm a graduate of UT, and I started out with Chevron.
Oh, okay.
The Alcoa plant, there's 31,000 acres that SLR paid $250 million for.
Mm-hmm.
That is being used for data center, crypto, and we have the aquifer with the water. So that's Milam and Lee and Bastrop.
Well, that sounds good.
And see, well, what they're doing is people need water.
Okay.
So they're selling water to Samsung. I'm with it. Samsung is over in Taylor. So, and that's a big, like $16 billion deal.
When you say Taylor, do you mean like Rockdale, Milano, Taylor, that area?
Yes.
Okay.
Taylor, Texas. Taylor's about 20 miles
north of Austin. Yeah.
Right. And see, the point of it is that the farmland around Hutto is some of the best farmland in the country. And a lot of people worked at Alcoa, and they shut it down in 2008. And so I'm real factual. And what I'm saying is a lot of people's wells are going dry because they're pumping so much water over in Burleson. So what they have two water districts.
Hey, Kendall, I need you to speed this up. I'm down to like 20 seconds.
What I'm telling you is we have the water, the land, and now we have data centers. So you have a good day.
Thank you very much. I think that was in favor of what I think he was on my side. Just ran out of time. 800-288-9227. Listen, I'm only going to do one more segment of data centers, and then we got to beat up Anthony Fauci. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Hello, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. We're in the middle of another data center debate. And I did hear back, actually, the user EF7 asked if there was an update on the Sammy Lee hate crime story out of Longview a month ago. The dad of the friend texted back, nope, just a waiting game. She's not allowed to make any public statements. And when we have like the trial date and whatever, he'll let us know. So that's what we got there. But on the data center front, it's kind of sad because what happened is a giant data center was planned for Henderson County, just about an hour, maybe an hour and a half east of here on Cedar Creek Reservoir. It got shot down. And Greg Abbott thinks it's great. The news thinks it's great. Bernie Sanders thinks it's great. AOC thinks it's great. The Chinese Communist Party absolutely loves it. Why do so many otherwise reasonable people, James Show listeners included, why do they think it's great? Here's them.
With signs in hand. We all have to start banding together. People from around the state.
Somebody forgot that this is Texas. Everything is bigger here, including our resistance.
Gathered on the steps of the state capitol, waging a war.
Data centers and AI is a grave threat to
You know what? Since when do we protest? Since when? We're not the ones that are supposed to go make signs and go stand in front of a door and talk to the news and talk about how angry we are and these other people, we don't like what they're doing in their private property, so we're going to use the government to force our will on them. That's not us, dude. When you're doing that, you're not being yourself. You need to have a Snickers. Like you start taking socialist positions. Here, have a Snickers. Oh, thanks. You're not yourself when you're hungry, I guess. I don't know. Let's try the phones again. This might be ugly. Russell in McKinney, you're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
James, I think it's the cities and municipalities could do themselves a big favor in how they communicate. You know, it's the appearance of impropriety because they have to sign NDAs with these organizations as well as the economic development activity in each county. They have to sign NDAs. That's obviously established to keep land piracy from happening. But I think if they were to, they could benefit themselves by having the conversation with their communities ahead of time. In other words, sit there and dispel the myths, have the communications before they enter into these type of agreements, because it's the appearance of secrecy and all that. And that's all a result of the NDAs. But if people were able to get more educated, I think you could dispel those myths locally. And even if there is a concern about, say, water, and they didn't consider a closed loop system, you could probably work all that out. Please, well, you're never going to please everybody, but
right.
You know, at least be able to get make some changes without just throwing everything.
I think that might be a good counter to the problem that we already have, but I don't think that's the genesis of why we have such a groundswell movement. It's not because the people in Cedar Creek Reservoir area weren't transparent enough with their data center dealings. There's already a groundswell sort of movement that's being funded that's against this. And there's people who are against data centers not because they didn't like or appreciate the NDA that was signed with the Cedar Creek Reservoir people. They're against data centers for some other reason, Russell. And maybe they could have been better and more transparent in their communication, but I don't think that's the genesis of the issue. Daniel and Hurst, you're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
Well, first, I'll tell you, I'm in favor of data centers. And the first thought, I like what that guy said before about communicating within the local community. But, my first thought was, and I know if I go north of here in Fort Worth, there's Amazon, there's a Facebook data center, there's all kinds of building warehouse space up there. You know, everybody forgets that when you use your phone, you do half the stuff you do, you get your smart TV going, all that stuff's going through a data center.
Yeah, so you data center opponents, cancel your Netflix subscription, throw your smartphone in the lake. Don't you ever get on anything social media. Don't you ever stream anything. Everything better be an over-the-air broadcast. You're only allowed to listen to WBAP and the 4 stations you can get on TV or whatever it is. Now, I think the problem we have in making people understand this is the product is intangible, but economically speaking, it's every bit as important as if we were manufacturing something, or if we were making hot dogs, or if we were making shoes. And people understand that you put a factory here, yeah, okay, for the neighbors, it's going to make a lot of noise and it's going to use a lot of resources, but you're creating jobs and wealth, and an incredible amount of wealth and taxes is going to be drawn from that, and it'll be a net good on the community. And I think people aren't getting it just because you can't see the product coming out of the data center. The product ends up on your phone. The product ends up on your Hulu subscription and whatever show you're binging this weekend.
One other thing, since you said that, another parallel might be the situation we're in with the production of medications all being over in Taiwan.
Man, you're right. You're right. Because you don't build it here. It will be built somewhere. Stopping data centers being built in Henderson just means that data center, the load, that payload that it was going to carry is going to be carried somewhere else. Would you rather it be in China? Would you rather it be in Mexico? Would you like to have foreign countries be able to cut us off from processing our own data? Would you? They haven't thought it through, Daniel. That's a great metaphor. I appreciate it. Good call. This is Jen and Keller. You're on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey, Jen.
Hey, yeah, I'm actually in Toller. So I've called before, and I don't want to talk about water or land, but I was talking to some of my friends that, although they aren't in Texas, they're in Virginia, and their county has 250 data centers.
Loudoun County.
Which I didn't think was possible. Yeah, and so we're not talking about podunk people or anything like that. Very well-educated, very financially well-off people.
And it's the fringes of the D.C. suburbs.
Yeah. So the whole, we talked and talked and talked. And then finally, the bottom line, and I'm so glad that you brought up financial incentives. They have a pretty big house, and they told me since the data centers have started that they have not gotten one tax break at all. In fact, their land taxes have gone up.
Yeah, so in Loudoun County, the millage for the taxes on residences has gone down every year since 2019. Now, they've had data centers long before that, but I don't know if they just had a big surge or whatever, but they've actually cut the millage on all that. So I guess maybe their house appreciation kind of makes up for the millage cut, and they're sort of breaking even, but their taxes would be higher without those data centers. The taxes collected from the data centers has cut the millage in Loudoun County every year for the last 6 years.
Not according to her, and she's a realtor. So
okay. Well, maybe it's not Loudoun County. Maybe it's a different county. But I remember reporting on this a couple months ago. The nation, the county in the nation with the most data centers, the highest concentration of data centers, is in Northwest Virginia, the fringes of the D.C. suburb, and the county council or whatever they got going on, commission, has cut the millage on their property taxes every year for the last 6 years. All right, that's going to do it for the data center topic. Anything else, go ahead and email me, or I know a bunch of you are going to try and beat me up in the Facebook comments. That's cool. I look forward to responding to all of it. That's all right. You can be wrong. You're still welcome to listen to the show. Coming up next, I'm going to make the case, and I know this sounds like hyperbole, or you're just saying crazy things on the radio to get attention. No, I'm going to make the case, and I think you will agree with me over the next 20 minutes. Anthony Fauci deserves to get the death penalty. That's, again, I'm not exaggerating. And I'm also going to make the case, not only does he deserve to get the death penalty, nobody in American history has deserved the death penalty more than Anthony Fauci. Stick around. I'll make that case coming up on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Donald Fauci deserves a death penalty more than anybody else in American history. What did I say? Donald Fauci? Oh, my goodness. Yes, Anthony Fauci, Tony Fauci, Dr. Fauci. Sure I didn't say Dr. Fauci? Sorry about the boo-boo there. A great start to the hour, guys. That's the James Show, News Talk 820 933 FM WBAP. But thank you for the correction, Garrett. If I said that wrong, I prefer you correct me. That sounds hyperbole, I know. I can't believe not everybody that has access to a microphone or a camera and a microphone isn't saying the same thing. But what's the death penalty for? What is punishment for? You don't punish the horse thief because he stole the horse. It's not like it's going to bring it back. They're not going to be restored. You punish the horse thief so that horses will not be stolen in the future. Why do we kill murderers? To hopefully lessen the likelihood that there will be more murders in the future. So the punishment isn't like some sort of justice measurement in the fact that this will show him or this will make everything right. This is you sending a signal to the rest of society. This is a society sending the signal to the rest of itself that these types of acts will not be tolerated. Now, the two most egregious things that happened in COVID there's just two categories really. Number one, the health problems, all the health, the deaths, the long COVID, the cardiac arrests, the effects of the vaccine, the reactions to it, the seizures, the died suddenly, all the soccer players that were falling over, the comedians that were collapsing on stage, the speakers that were collapsing at the podium, the teachers that were collapsing in front of class, all the health problems. The other big sticking point that I hope really bothers you and bothers all of America about COVID, the whole world, is it was the biggest violation of individual rights in American history. I mean, you could say the closest comparison we have would be like slavery, but that really only affected a very small proportion of people, as terrible as it was. And it was only in like 13 of our 50 states, and it only lasted for, it's a small period of time that was like 150 years ago. So, I mean, maybe that. I mean, you could maybe say segregation. There's millions of people who couldn't assemble wherever they wanted. They didn't have their freedom of movement. They didn't have their freedom of religion, with segregation. It's kind of the same violation of rights. But again, it was only to a small minority of people within a minority of states. This was everybody's rights got violated across all states, no matter what your skin tone, no matter what your religion, your age, whatever, what state you were in, you could not avoid it. 330 million people had their constitutional rights violated. And we don't even have to get out of the First Amendment to see how bad it was. There was no more freedom of assembly, which is promised in the First Amendment, right? In fact, he just kind of went through the First Amendment and said, all right, let's turn over all of these things. Let's violate all of these one by one. Freedom of religion. You couldn't go to church. You couldn't gather in groups and have a Bible study, even in somebody's house in some states. And I think you weren't supposed to do it here in Texas, but we ignored all that out in the middle of nowhere. We did what we wanted. But we also had the freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of speech. All of these things were violated. It's like, wait, no one went to jail for freedom of speech violations. No, but the government did put offices in the platform of social media companies and leaned on them to censor people's speech, and they complied. So legally speaking, based on Dr. Fauci's lies, and now we know that they're lies. We have the guy who is the reason, the genesis, the backstop. The buck stops here. It stops with that guy on the biggest violation of constitutional rights in American history. Now let's go to the other side. We were talking about the health effects. You got all the long COVID, you got all the cardiac issues, you have all the Parkinson's and other reactions and cancers and things that people are claiming. I know people who lost friends to the COVID vax. I have a good friend whose brother died after taking the COVID vax. The guy who was the sweeper on my soccer team in college died from a reaction to the vaccine. When you add up the deaths, how many people died from COVID? And then you say, how many people died from COVID just in America? You now have, if you want to pin these on Anthony Fauci, you have the biggest killer in American history. Over 1 million Americans died, but I don't think that's fair. Because the virus that this guy funded killed people worldwide. Remember, it started off with Anthony Fauci doing some research that was illegal, unethical, gain-of-function research in the Carolinas. He got busted. They shut it down. He funded the research in a lab in Wuhan in a collaboration with the Chinese Communist Party. That disease got out. He turns around and lies to the world about it, causing even more problems. And if you want to say, is there any one person who is most responsible for this outbreak? It would be this guy. And I would think he's responsible for 7 million confirmed COVID deaths. Anthony Fauci is the greatest murderer, or if you just want to be generous, just reckless manslaughter. He has killed more people than any American in history. So you have the two sides of the COVID reaction coin. It is the biggest loss of life in American history, and it was the biggest violation of constitutional rights in American history. And if we don't have the death penalty for that, then what the hell do we have it for? 7 million people are dead because of this guy's malfeasance. This guy should have been killed years ago. The fact that he's not in cuffs and being taken through a Nuremberg trial right now is a travesty of justice. Some people are still celebrating him. And if you think of James, I still think you're being too harsh. Well, stick around. I'm going to play some audio clips coming up because Fauci is going to be dragged in front of Congress starting tomorrow. And in advance of that, Rand Paul has released some of Anthony Fauci's digital diary. And it turns out he knew since January of 2020, before you even knew what COVID was, he knew from day one that it wasn't from a wet market. He knew it was from a lab. He knew it was from his lab. He knew it was from his lab that he funded. He knew that it was his lab that he funded with the studies that he approved of, that he had moved from North Carolina. This was his baby. And somehow he turned around, made himself a celebrity, got to throw out the first pitch games, made millions of dollars through speaking fees. He got all kinds of interviews. And he was the guy responsible for all the death and destruction around him. He was being celebrated. The audio you hear next, now that you have all this context, is going to make you sick. Because it was something that you kind of knew and you kind of suspected, but it's been confirmed beyond a shadow of a doubt, even worse than you thought. So stick around for those audio bits coming up next, because Dr. Fauci deserves the death penalty more than anybody else in American history. And if not him, if you disagree with me, who? In American history, who deserves the death penalty more than Fauci? It's almost world history. There's only like 5 people in world history that have killed more people than Anthony Fauci. It's like Genghis Khan, Mao Zedong, Lenin, Stalin. That's about, he's right on par with Hitler as far as number of deaths. And that's not an exaggeration. All right, stick around for that audio. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. No one in American history has deserved the death penalty more than Anthony Fauci. I'm James Parker. It's the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Some things that we're learning ahead of his big hearing in front of Congress tomorrow come from his diary, and we're all cross-referencing that with the storyline that we were given in real time through 2020, 2021. And look, we have receipts. We have him in an interview saying the opposite of what was in his diary. We have now the diary of him knowing that even as soon as 2020, that this came from his lab. And for those of you who are worried about the pardon's not going to cover him if he lies to Congress tomorrow, at least. I don't know if that pardon can even stand up. Because if he does, like, later on, go to trial, get convicted of murder, you can't have a preemptive pardon for a crime that hasn't even happened yet. And well, whatever the charges are, you say he's pardoned. Show me the pardon where it says that the president absolves him of these crimes, because that doesn't exist. We've never had a blanket pardon like that. So we'll see whether it's legal or not, whether the pardon stops him. I still stand by the fact that no one has deserved the death penalty in American history more than Anthony Fauci. I find that hard to argue with. But here's Megyn Kelly going over the diary entry and from 2020, where you can see he admits that he knew it came from the lab in January of 2020.
Fauci knew in January of 2020. January. The COVID pandemic hit America the middle of March 2020. He knew in January that the, quote, market was not the source. It was the amplifier. He wrote in his diary on January 26th, now we know the market was not the source. It was the amplifier. So he knew that. Then we get to February 1st, 2020, and 12 scientists and he get together. Only 2 concluded this had a natural origin. Per Fauci's own notes, quote, the rest felt that deliberate insertion was possible. Deliberate insertion of the cleavage site, basically the piece of the COVID virus that made it more transmissible and more deadly to humans. It was man inserted. They could tell.
So when he goes out there and says that it's a conspiracy theory or Rand Paul is wrong, that's not where it came from. It was a lie, and he knew it was a lie when he said it. He said through all of 2020. Here he is in July 20th, 2021.
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function. Let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans.
Right.
You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about.
Well, ask him that same question tomorrow. See what he says. He's going to take the 5th, isn't he? Can he take the 5th if he has a pardon? I don't know. Chris and Keller, you're next up on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP.
Yeah, I was just saying, I cannot agree with you more. My grandmother 20 years ago had her knees replaced, and about 2018, 2019, her prosthetics were failing, and she needed new ones. She was going through all the workups to get it done, but then COVID happened, and it was deemed to be an elective procedure, so they wouldn't do it. Her knees got so bad, she lost her mobility. That affected her health so badly that a few years later, when she got cancer, she was no longer a surgical candidate because she'd lost all of her mobility. And she ended up dying alone because of it.
Millions and millions of people have died for this lie, Chris. He's going to, I think the likelihood, as much as I want him to get the death penalty, I don't even think he's going to go to prison.
Probably not. But you're darn right he should.
You know, I think if this happened again, half of the country would still fall for it.
Yeah, I know me and my wife, we didn't fall for it. We didn't take the shots. I almost lost my job over it, but thanks to Texas and banning enforcement of the mandate, I didn't get fired. but a whole lot of other people did. I mean, the whole thing, travesty.
Yeah, I agree. Cost me a job. Cost me. Then after that, when I was trying to get another job, I didn't get the vaccine. Hey, do you have the vaccine? We can't come into the studios if you don't have a vaccine. Well, then I guess I can't come to the studios. Can I do it from home? No. Okay, well, nice knowing you. I got to look at my wife and kids. Yeah, I had an opportunity. I had to pass it up because I'm not falling for this. I'm not stupid. They are lying to me. Jeff and Justin, you're on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP.
Yeah, James, you talked about it, and the gentleman before just now talked about the impact on the elderly. We lost our father-in-law during this time, and then the immeasurable damage it's done to our young people and their education and socialization into society. We may never get over.
Oh, well, we'll get over it. I think the only good part we have going forward now is we can use this next time that there's a air quotes emergency where they try and usurp your rights. We can all just go back and see. Remember how COVID was just 100% lie after lie after lie. In fact, pretty much every scary threat that they've thrown at you has turned out to be false. Like, how old are you? You sound like you're a little, I don't know, about my age, probably, right?
No, I'm 75.
Oh, okay. Well, then you came up in the generation before me, and you probably remember the old duck and cover. You remember duck and cover?
Yeah.
Yeah, here, this.
Getting under your desk?
Yeah. Let me play this for the kids.
Be sure and remember what Bert the Turtle just did, friends, because every one of us must remember to do the same thing. That's what this film is all about. Duck and cover. Paul and Patty know this. No matter where they go or what they do, they always try to remember what to do if the atom bomb explodes right then.
You're dead. You're going to be atomized. Now, Jeff,
right.
let me go ahead and cut that short. We had 50 years of the Cold War. Did they ever drop a bomb, Jeff?
No.
There wasn't an atomic bomb that was dropped anywhere in the United States. Did they ever drop a conventional bomb anywhere in the United States?
No.
Did the Soviets or the Chinese or the Japanese, did they drop a water balloon anywhere on the United States?
They may have, but I don't know about
Right. I was just kind of being hyperbolic for comedy's sake.
James.
30 seconds, go.
Here's another thing, James.
Okay.
We had to get under our desk for our drills. We were going to school no less than 10 miles from the largest oil refinery in the world down in Baytown. That,
Yeah, well, if that gets nuked, y'all
dropped a bomb on that.
Yeah, didn't matter if you were under 100 desks. No, we all get it. But all of these scaremongering things, they're all built on lies, and they all are about control. And the sooner we can stop being scared and stop falling for the next okie doke. Oh, you've got to be scared of what? White rural rage. Oh, really? You got to be scared of racism in America? White supremacy, boy, lurking around every corner. Yeah. That's what I see in the news every night. White supremacist shootings. Sure. That's who just had the targeted shooting in Forney last night. That's who just knocked over the poor lady and her family off the bridge in Terrell night before last. That's who's doing everything. Everything is built on scaremongering like that. Ooh, look out for data centers. They're going to use all your water and collapse your electricity, and we're not going to have any more farmland. Stop falling for it, people. 800-288-9227. More on just crossing our fingers and hoping Fauci will at least go to jail. I think he deserves the death penalty. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, homeowners. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. Your roof has been through a lot this year, and if you have any doubts, getting a roofer is an exercise in trust. And I know you hear that on commercials. What do you mean trust? Well, listen, you don't go around ranking the roofers every day. You don't know who's the best. You don't keep up with it like college football. Well, who's number 2? Who's the third best? You're going to have to trust somebody at some point. And so trust Blue Ribbon Roofing. Trust the guy you hear on the radio. Trust all of your neighbors who've left 5-star reviews on Blue Ribbon Roofing. And after a while, you do all that reading up. You see their history. You hear from your neighbors. Then it's not trust anymore. Then you verified it. So then go to blueribbondfw.com, schedule your free inspection, have John come out to your house. He'll whip out his ladder, jump on your roof, take some pictures, show you what's up. and then they'll help you through the process the whole way, start to finish, the construction, the cleanup, and most importantly, dealing with that pesky insurance company. So if you have any doubts about your roof, get a free roof inspection today. Go to blueribbondfw.com. Fauci deserves the death penalty. I don't think you can really change my mind on that, but you can try. 800-288-9227. This is the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. If you're just joining us, Anthony Fauci is going to go in front of Congress tomorrow in a hearing. And in advance of that, Rand Paul has released some new documentation that you hadn't seen before. I hadn't seen it. And it comes from Anthony Fauci's diary. Now, one thing that we learned, probably one of the most egregious things that we learned, is not really anything new at all. It's just confirmation of what Rand Paul has been telling you pretty much this entire time. Number one, it was from a lab, and they were lying about the natural origins of it the entire time. Now, it makes sense now why they're lying about the origins of it, because if it comes from the lab, people would say, what lab? Oh, this lab that you were funding? So he was lying about it to put some distance between the creation of the virus and himself. That way, hey, you can't blame me for this thing being created. I didn't create it. It definitely didn't come from my lab. What are you talking about? So there's that obfuscation. And just a reminder of how silly the whole lab leak conspiracy theory was treated. This was the terrible, god-awful, embarrassing NPR that you were funding. This was their report from April 23rd of 2020. Now, remember, we learned from the diary that Anthony Fauci and all the doctors knew from jump in January of 2020 that it was from the lab. They turned around, created this false narrative, and look how easily the media bought it.
From the beginning of the coronavirus, scientists worldwide agree that the virus occurred naturally, that it made its way from animal to a human like SARS and MERS did. But the Trump administration has been raising the possibility that a lab accident in China could be behind the start of the coronavirus. To explain all of this, we're joined now by NPR's Jeff Brumfield. Hey, Jeff.
Hi there, Elsa. A province in China, there was a small survey that found nearly 3% of the population had coronavirus antibodies. So a natural crossover really looks most likely here.
So interesting. That is NPR's Jeff Brumfield. Thanks so much, Jeff.
Yes, that's so interesting. We are so smart, so much smarter than you. You can tell by the way we talk down to you in our condescending tone. Go to jail, bro. RFK yesterday, I believe this is on the Laura Ingraham show.
Yeah, and millions of people injured. You know, that he lied about masks, he lied about social distancing, he lied about the transmission, he lied about natural immunity, he lied about the capacity, as you just said, of the vaccine to prevent infection. He got vaccinated, a very, very public press conference in January of 2020. And then 5 months later, he had, and this is the first time that we knew this from the diary, he had a pulmonary infarction, which is one of the adverse events that NIH, CDC, and FDA said are expected from the vaccine. He never told anybody. He got treated for it privately by the best doctors in America. At the same time, he was telling everybody that that was not.
All right, let's go to the phones here. Adam in Frisco, you're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP.
Thanks, James. I was curious if AutoPen would have any effect on his pardon, and I'm going to hang up to listen. Thank you.
You know, I hope it does. I'm not a very good person to ask about that because I'm not a lawyer and I have no legal training or experience, but I have heard other people with legal training and experience talk about because the hope on this is that it's never gone to court before. So we can't turn around and look at some Supreme Court precedent or any court precedent on whether or not an AutoPen pardon is valid. And if it was AutoPen, you got to start to wonder on this AutoPen if any of them should count. Because I understand the AutoPen when there was like a government shutdown and they had the deal worked out. It passed both houses of Congress, but Barack Obama was flying back from the climate conference in Paris, and he signed a copy of it on Air Force One, and then the AutoPen copied it over in D.C. and made it official. I mean, that's kind of, I guess that's okay. But when you have a guy using AutoPen when he's in the same building, that should make you suspicious. I mean, everything else they've done has deserved your suspicion. Why not this? Why wouldn't you have him just come walk down the hall and sign it? What the hell did he do that 300 times for? And I'm recalling off the top of my head, there's something like 300 pardons and bills and stuff that were signed with AutoPen while he was in the building. That makes no sense. If he's not available and you AutoPen, okay, that's a maybe. I'm still questionable on that. But man, if they can get a technicality on that, this guy needs the death penalty. 7 million people died because of his malfeasance. The lying and cover up that went along with it, making himself rich, making himself famous, just loving all over himself. The lack of remorse, the lack of shame, the lack of accountability. He's still lying. He still hasn't admitted he lied. Even when we know, he's still going on with the facade that he didn't lie. He's in Jussie Smollett territory right now. He needs to die. The greatest loss of life by any one American and the greatest violation of every American's constitutional rights. If not the death penalty for this guy, then nobody deserves it. Mike and Cleburne, you're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP.
Hey, man, love the show. I was going to comment on he's right up there with, if not more, Joseph Mengele, the major manipulator of human life out of the Nazi Party. And it doesn't stop there. He manipulated the AIDS stuff too. So this guy is just a piece of crap.
Does anyone deserve the death penalty more than this guy?
No. And I line him up right there with you.
Good. Here's I don't want to be cynical and take the fun out of the segment here, but do you think he's going to spend 1 second in jail?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. I think he's got enough money actions that he's just going to skirt around with all the lawyer jargon, and it really annoys me to no end.
Well, he's going to have half of the country defending him because the hardest thing in the world I've observed, Mike, is to get a human being to admit that they were wrong. And so for people to say Fauci needs to go to jail, we're actually asking them to change their entire worldview. Because if they admit that, if they admit that they were wrong in not just in Anthony Fauci, but everything that he was saying, and they were supporting this guy, that means that everyone who was tattling on someone else for not wearing a mask deserves an apology. Everyone who lost their job deserves an apology. Every time someone tisk and told you to put a mask on, they owe you an apology. They were not only in the wrong, they were duped. They were duped by people who were like, well, I know we created this virus on our watch with our funding, and it got out of our lab on our watch with our funding. But if we just turn around and tell these people lies, very obviously, easily disprovable lies, they're stupid enough they'll fall for it. And they were, Mike. That's what we can't get. People aren't going to admit that. Yeah, it was really that dumb, and I was really that much of a dupe. It's going to be impossible. And I think that's what's going to save Anthony Fauci. It's because you can't get a bunch of people just like, oh, man, yeah, I was duped by the propaganda, and I was an active participant in denying my fellow Americans their constitutional rights, and I'm sure I'm embarrassed and sorry, and I learned my lesson, and I'm never going to do that again. No. Heck, we still have people that are wearing masks. Have you seen that? They had the DSA conference like in San Diego last month, and about half of these people in the conference were wearing masks. Remember, these people closed your business. They closed your schools. They closed your churches, your restaurants, your kids' sports, your pro sports. They made the NBA play in a bubble. They violated every basic human decency to attend the funeral of your own mother. This is the most egregious and grotesque violation of rights since we made the Democrats in segregation. But they violated freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion, and they cheered it on with a rabid fervor. 20% of Democrats in 2021 surveyed thought that you should lose custody of your child if you didn't get them vaccinated. These people got so scared they turned into monsters. Don't ever expect them to apologize for it. 800-288-9227. Will Fauci go to prison? I doubt it. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. On your home for the WBAP Morning Show, check out Hal J and the crew from 5 to 9. Anthony Fauci is going to be dragged in front of Congress tomorrow. There's going to be hearings. I am skeptical as heck that anything's actually going to come of this as much as I want it to. But if anyone deserves it, if anyone deserves prison, if anyone deserves a death penalty, it is Anthony Fauci. If you're just joining, and that sounds like hyperbole, I was spelling it out in earlier segments that the loss of life from this guy's malfeasance, over 7 million people. He's the biggest killer in American history. He's almost the biggest killer in world history. There's only about 5 or 6 people who are responsible for more deaths than this guy. Mao Zedong, Genghis Khan, Stalin. He's up there with some terrible company. He's almost up to Hitler numbers. But that, with the lying about it, with the violation of your constitutional rights, and it wasn't just like, he kind of, made some health scary hyperbole and then someone else violated your constitutional rights. No, he was actively campaigning for ending your individual rights. Listen to this.
But you are killing millions of people. You have got to look at it and say there comes a time when you do have to give up what you consider your individual right of making your own decision for the greater good of society.
Nah, bro. You were doing some research you weren't supposed to in Carolina. It got shut down, rightfully so, because it was illegal. You moved it to China in collaboration with the biggest killers in history, the Chinese Communist Party. One of the few people that have killed more people than you at this point, Fauci. Then the virus got out. 7 million people died. You lied to everyone about it. Bro, you deserve to go to jail at least. I think the death penalty. I can't believe all of Fox News isn't saying this guy deserves a death penalty. How many people do you have to kill before the death penalty is on the table? You'd figure it'd be less than 7 million. Larry in Arlington, you're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
Hey, I just have a question that I haven't heard brought up yet. Let's just say we have to accept the fact that the pardon is good, okay? That doesn't protect him from another country charging him, does it?
Yeah, I don't know if another country could charge him. I don't know if he could be charged on the state level, but there seems to be enough of a conversation, because I've heard other people say that, and it hasn't been completely shot down.
We have extradition treaties with a lot of countries.
Well, and pretty much every country has a beef with this dude. Is there any country that didn't lose someone from COVID?
And then send them to the nastiest country you could find.
Send him to the CCOT, that El Salvador prison. He can hang out with the Maryland father, Abrego Garcia. They can play mahjong for all I care. I think he deserves the death penalty, but don't get my hopes up, Larry. Don't give me hope.
I'm just thinking we should just, on the level off, send him away somewhere.
Yeah, hey.
Somebody else indict him.
Maybe Malay in Argentina can do us a solid. He owes us $20 billion. Jamie in Hickory Creek, you're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, Jamie.
Hey, James. I got a slight argument with the numbers you have.
Okay.
Fauci actually has recorded stuff back in AIDS. So they did remdesivir back then, and they found out it was killing people back then. So he may actually be up there with Mao and Stalin and everything else, because he's actually proud of the fact that he's been doing that stuff.
Yeah, I forget about the AIDS stuff. And someone had pointed out to me maybe a year or so into the whole coronavirus thing that, hey, you know that Matthew McConaughey movie, The Dallas Buyers Club? He was talking about Fauci, where they were killing people with remdesivir and AZT and whatnot. And, he went on a crusade to try and save lives because no one else cared about the poor AIDS patients in the late 80s, early 90s, which, I mean, it was a great movie. And if that is a true script, that's an amazing story. But yeah, Fauci was rolled up in that stuff too. Okay, so you agree this guy definitely deserves prison. Do you agree?
Heck yeah.
Does he deserve the death penalty?
Yes, he does. And in actuality, with his diary coming out, other countries may look at his diary and say, I want him. In which case his pardon means nothing.
Don't get me excited, Jamie. Don't you too?
I'm telling you.
This guy needs to be thrown in the wood chipper with all the pedophiles and whatnot. All right, thank you, Jamie. Let me do one more. Cleo and Plano, you're on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how are you doing? I actually do feel he should get the death penalty, and this is why. There's other medical professionals like me who lost their jobs when they tried to say this is wrong. My background is in veterinary medicine, so I do know a lot about zoonotics, and I did used to work in a lab. And I stopped working because I saw most people work in labs are a little psycho because it takes a lot of crazy to do that to animals. But I digress. Fauci, the thing that got to me the most was the fact that he would lie every time and say, oh, the virus is doing this and it's doing that. I was like, how is it doing that? I said, are you saying this virus is totally defying the laws of nature? You guys have found some way to do something like this? I was like, you're lying, because it's not. Because you could see the way with the infection rates and what was going on, it was doing exactly the way you expected it should. And you could see the way it was going, that they could easily have predicted it, but they wish they didn't want to. He loved the celebrity. You had the politics on one side. They loved shutting down the country and trying to get rid of President Trump, so they went with it. And then you also had a lot of the hospitals and other places. They were getting a lot of government funding, so they're just like, hey, let's just roll with it.
You know, Cleo, I hear a lot of other talk show hosts right now and people on TV pointing out the fact that he really loved the celebrity. That doesn't surprise me or really even bother me at all. I think most people would be a little surprised if they got that amount of attention, you know, and then especially if you're that little weaselly looking mouse dork your entire life. Because what is he, like 5'5", 138 pounds? You know, he wasn't getting chicks in high school and college, and he was probably bullied and picked on and, you know, tall mogged his entire life. And now he finally gets to be the cool kid for 5 seconds when he's 80 years old. I mean, too bad it was, you know, at the expense of 7 million people. But coming up next, no more calls here. I'm just going to play straight up audio of Anthony Fauci lying to you from what we've discovered from the diaries coming up next. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. All right, I'm going to be ripping through about 1,000 stories in this last hour. I'm James Parker. It's the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I've got to finish off this Fauci stuff. I just want you to be ready for tomorrow, because tomorrow is the hearing, and I just want you to hear all of this and have the context and be ready. Anthony Fauci is supposed to go in front of Congress, and he's going to be asked the same questions that he was asked last time he's in front of Congress, but this time he doesn't have a pardon over his head. This time we have more information. This time, not only do we know he's lying, we can prove it. So we'll see. But if you want to see how you knew that he was lying this entire time, you didn't need the newly released diary. You didn't need any of this other Freedom of Information Act. You didn't need to go read through his emails. You didn't need to go read through his communications and see what he was saying behind the scenes. Any observant person who was listening to some iteration of the James Show during COVID would have just noticed the same thing. Anytime someone changes the story in front of your face and it doesn't admit they changed the story and it acts like this is what they've been saying the whole time, that is your red flag. We learned this from George Orwell in 1984.
At this moment, for example, in 1984, if it was 1984, Oceania was at war with Eurasia and in alliance with Eastasia. In no public or private utterance was it ever admitted that the three powers had at any time been grouped along different lines. Actually, as Winston well knew, it was only 4 years since Oceania had been at war with Eastasia and in alliance with Eurasia. But that was merely a piece of furtive knowledge which he happened to possess, because his memory was not satisfactorily under control. Officially, the change of partners had never happened. Oceania was at war with Eurasia. Therefore, Oceania had always been at war with Eurasia. The enemy of the moment always represented absolute evil, and it followed that any past or future agreement with him was impossible.
So these next examples are going to fit in that Orwellian paradigm that you just heard from the audiobook of 1984. When he says that wearing masks doesn't do anything, and then he says wearing masks is an imperative, the point isn't that, he's a hypocrite. He's telling you to wear a mask, but he's not wearing a mask. No, he's lying, and that is different.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet. But it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. And often there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face. What about a month or so, or 2 or 3 ago, when people were saying, you don't really need to wear a mask? Well, the reason for that is that we were concerned that it was at a time when personal protective equipment, including the N95 masks and the surgical masks, were in very short supply. And we wanted to make sure that the people, namely the healthcare workers, we did not want them to be without the equipment that they needed.
Those are two contradictory statements. That is a lie. That is him saying, no, we're at war with Eurasia. We've always been at war with Eurasia. We've never been at war with East Asia. Here's, I have what I call the moving the goalpost montages. Here is the unvaccinated threat goalpost.
As a fully vaccinated person, should we have any worries about walking by someone on the street who may be unvaccinated?
Not at all. I would have no concern walking down the street past a person who's not been vaccinated and even a person who's been infected, because the protection is really quite substantial.
If someone in your family isn't vaccinated, should you ask them not to show up?
Yes, I would do that. I mean, I think we're dealing with a serious enough situation right now that if there's an unvaccinated person, I would say, I'm very sorry, but not this time, maybe another time when this is all over.
Yes. So if you're walking past an unvaccinated person on the street, no, that's fine. Months later, should your own family member who's unvaccinated come home for Christmas? Absolutely not. He's lying. He moved the goalposts on herd immunity. How many people have to get vaccinated before we have herd immunity? Meaning they'll drop the lockdowns, they'll drop the mandates because enough people have gotten vaccinated and stopped this virus that it'll now peter out on its own. Well, it started at 70%, and then it went up to 80%. And by the end of this montage, it's going to be 90%.
The estimate is that you'll need about 70%, maybe 75%
of the people in the country vaccinating.
Let's say we get 75%, 80% of the population vaccinated.
I say between 75 and 85% of the population. I would imagine that you would need something a little bit less than the 90%.
Yeah, so if the herd immunity goals keep moving, he's lying. He can't be right. It can't be both 70 and 90%. He was also asked, when are we going to get back to normal? As in, when are the lockdowns and mandates and masks going to stop? And it was always 3 months away. He would be asked in April, he would say the end of May. He would be asked at the end of May, he'd say the end of summer. He'd be asked at the end of summer, he'd say around Christmas. He'd be asked next year. And he just kept moving it back without ever admitting he was wrong or that the goalposts were even being moved. This was all gaslighting for 2 straight years.
The scientific advisor to Operation Warp Speed said this morning we could have true herd immunity somewhere in the month of May as the vaccine is distributed. Does America go back to life as normal in May?
And I believe you're referring to Monsef Salawi,
Yes.
who said that, and I totally agree with him.
That by the time you get to the end of the second quarter of 2021, namely May, June, July, August, that's going to be somewhere between the fall and the end of the year. If you say, no, wait a minute, I really want to know when it's going to get to as close to normal that you almost don't know the difference. That likely will be, as the president said, by the end of the year, by Christmas.
As we get into the spring, we could start getting back to a degree of normality, the spring of 2022, but there's no guarantee.
So not only did this guy take your money through the tax system, fund research that was so dangerous it was illegal, collude with the Chinese Communist Party, create a monster virus, leak it, whether it's on purpose or not, kind of irrelevant. It gets leaked. Over 7 million people die. Millions more are now affected by the vaccine and long COVID and other ancillary effects. He lied to your face about it every step of the way. He's shown no reticence. He's shown no shame, no guilt, no apologies, no admission that he got it wrong. He's just as defiant and proud as he could possibly be. And with the biggest violation of constitutional rights in American history and the biggest amount of deaths caused in American history, this guy definitely deserves the death penalty. Coming up next, Wilmer had a little bit of a scuffle that got both a councilman and a police chief in trouble. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there, Texas homeowners. James Parker here for Rhino Shield. When it's time for your house to get upgraded, when you need to get a makeover, that's what Rhino Shield's for. You know, sometimes you look at your house and it looks so nice when you bought it, and then you come back in 10, 15 years, and just a little bit of cracking, a little bit of flaking, a little bit of peeling on the paint can make it look like an old busted house from the Addams Family. Look, you can fix that with Rhino Shield and then never have to worry about it again, because you'll come back in 15, 20 years. There won't be any cracking, flaking, or peeling. It breathes with your home. It expands when your home gets hot. It contracts when your home gets cold. It lowers your energy costs with some insulation factor. It blocks 90% of UV rays, 8 to 10 times thicker than paint. In fact, the only complaint anyone's ever had is like, well, maybe it's slightly more expensive than paint, but here's where it's even better on the money side. They can finance it and put you on a low monthly payment. So it's even easier to pay for than paint. There really is no excuse anymore. You don't paint your house, you coat your home. Go to rhinoshieldDFW.com. Man, I'm not even sure what happened in Wilmer on this story, but I know I'm interested in finding out more. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Yeah, you can probably tell I'm somebody's little brother. I just love seeing people get in trouble for dumb things, as long as it's not me. But in this one, it's a Wilmer city councilman and their acting police chief, which I think is just a temporary guy who got assigned last week. But this sounds like kind of a wild story, but also sounds like something that probably happens every day somewhere in Texas.
A confrontation at a gas station is what landed a Wilmer city councilman in jail, but it's what happened during the investigation that put the acting police chief right there next to him. The councilman is Moses Garcia. He's accused of making a terroristic threat when, according to the arrest warrant, he made a threatening gesture and used a racial slur towards another man at this gas station. Investigators believe he was intoxicated, but while those investigators were getting surveillance footage from the gas station, they say Jesus Mencias, the acting police chief, told officers to give him the video and that he personally would handle the investigation. He was not in uniform at the time, and the warrant says he emailed the investigations division that all new evidence go directly to him. The problem with that is Mencias is not a licensed peace officer, so he is now charged with interfering with public duties. The interim city administrator in Wilmer said Mencias was only appointed last week to provide oversight while an administrative matter with the police captain was taking place. Both have bonded out of jail. We do not know what this means for their future as officials, but the interim city administrator said he has consulted the city attorney and they are cooperating fully with the investigation.
See, I still don't know what the crime is. He insulted a guy. He assaulted a guy. He said a slur, because a slur is not a crime. I mean, unless you're white. He's not white. He looks like he's Hispanic. And I kind of mean that as a joke. I kind of don't after the Shiloh Hendricks case. Like I thought you get away with it. Jay-Z gets away with saying it all the time. Kanye says it. Drake says it. Why can't the city councilman later? Just let me review that first 10 seconds again.
A confrontation at a gas station is what landed a Wilmer city councilman in jail, but it's what happened during the investigation that put the acting police chief right there next to him. The councilman is Moses Garcia. He's accused of making a terroristic threat when, according to the arrest warrant, he made a threatening gesture and used a racial slur towards another man at this gas station.
What's a threatening gesture? Like, I'm going to slice your neck, when they did the throat cut with your thumb? Is that what we're doing? Is it like the Mafia Sopranos thing where you flip your hand out from under your chin? Which kind of looks like thank you in sign language, but means something very different if you're in the mob. I don't know. It's a terroristic threat. What do you say? I'm going to fly a plane into this building? I don't know. I don't know what's happening there. I just know someone's going to get in trouble. But I'm also confused about the situation because this could be like a groundbreaking case here where a non-white person got in trouble for an ethnic slur. And now what are we going to do? We're going to have the hierarchy of ethnic slurs? Where it used to be only white people got in trouble for saying the N-word. Now Hispanics, that could take you down too? Huh? At what point, can blacks still say it? I know. What a silly situation we're in. Another silly story here. The FAA is demanding Boeing inspect the seats on its planes. Sometimes this stuff comes across the news, and I think people are just pulling something off a printer and reading it, and even they don't understand. What is the point of this?
Developing story we're monitoring, the FAA directing U.S. airlines to inspect seats on hundreds of Boeing 737 MAX jets. It says they may be installed incorrectly. Reuters reports this could apply to 453 jets registered in the U.S. Dallas-based Southwest Airlines says it is reviewing the directive. We also reached out to Fort Worth-based American, but have not heard back.
If you're flying around and you're not having any negative consequences from the way the seats are installed, then they're installed correctly, FAA. I don't even know where this comes from. You don't think Boeing has a built-in incentive to install their seats correctly? You think we really need a governing body that's standing over them, making sure they screw in your seat correctly? I love the idea that we need the FAA. Well, if we don't have the FAA, who's going to inspect the aircraft? Well, I bet you Southwest Airlines inspects their own damn planes just fine with the FAA. If a plane goes down mid-flight and 300 people die, you think that was a profitable flight for Southwest? Do you think they really need an incentive? It's like, well, I know 300 people could have died and it would have cost us $100 million in lawsuits, but we better go ahead and do the right thing and keep our plane safe because there's an inspector. What weird fantasy oversight fetish do these people have? Hey, I don't think you have your seat screwed in correctly. Well, screw you. What do you know? I'm also like slapping my head. This sounds like the salmonella egg recall. Well, the FDA has announced that there's a recall on eggs. The FDA didn't do squat in that story. And you'll see that for almost every story about some sort of bloodborne pathogen or foodborne pathogen or a recall like that, it follows a very similar path. The people that catch it are almost never, I say almost because I remember there was like 2 or 3 stories in the 20-something years that I've done this where an FDA inspector actually did catch something and it turned out to be true. But in the story on the eggs, they have the recall. Look out. Things are dangerous. We got to keep you safe. Here's the numbers on the eggs. If you got them, you should return them. When in reality is the number of people who have gotten sick from the salmonella tainted eggs out of that one facility that went to a whole bunch of like Brookshires and stuff. Do you know what the number is? I don't mean people who died. I mean people who've gotten sick, people who had the trots. It's 0. You know who found the salmonella outbreak to begin with? It wasn't an FDA inspector. It was the company themselves. Well, why would they do a recall on themselves? Doesn't that cost them money? It would cost them more money if they gave you the trots, people. Businesses have a built-in incentive to not kill their customers and to not make them sick and to not have them fly off a seat that's not screwed in properly on an airplane. The idea of inspections is so childish and facile, it's becoming very annoying to stomach seeing on the media. Coming up next on The James Show, Jerry Reynolds, the car pro, is going to tell you what the top cars are of 2026 thus far, and none of them are cars. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. What's the number one car in the country? Let's find out with Jerry Reynolds, the Car Pro from the Car Pro show that you hear weekends on WBAP from 9 to 11. Say hello to my guest, Jerry Reynolds. Welcome back, Jerry. How's it going? Well, first, before we spoil the list, I'm doing great, by the way. What percentage of your show on the weekend is people calling in saying, hey, I got an offer on a car. Is this a good deal? If you did the whole show and it was just those calls, I could listen to that. I don't understand why that's so entertaining, but you know, the different questions and the different question tree that arises from that, I find surprising, you know, because the guy that, you know, has to commute 100 miles a day to work has a much different answer than the guy who is commuting 5 miles a day to work. And it's just cool how different answers you can get from the same question. Yeah, we have more information than we can digest when it comes to cars these days. So the reason I'm having you on, though, you put out an article on our news friends, the DallasExpress.com. And for the first 6 months of 2026, the top cars are all trucks. Well, then you go back and trucks are popping up further down on the list as well. The first car, like actual car, not a crossover, not an SUV, not a truck. The first car is the Tesla Model Y. Well, aside from that Tesla, there's not an actual car in the top 10. And then, and so the first time you get to an actual gas powered car, Honda Civic, number 11. And then Toyota Corolla right after that. So now you're looking at the super cheapest, most reliable cars you could possibly get. And they're sort of bunched together. So you get a clear idea what the market wants. It wants big trucks. If you can't get a big truck, give me a crossover and SUV. And if you can't afford either one of those, this is what you settle for. Am I reading that right? So why do you think the popularity of trucks is going to be challenged in the future? Hmm. Well, I don't remember the list being like this. Of course, there's no way I keep up with it nearly as much as you do, but like, where's a Ford Mustang? That's not on the list? Well, I love your weekend show. You can catch them Saturdays from 9 to 11 here on WBAP. It's Jerry Reynolds with the Car Pro Show. Thank you, sir. Yeah, good to have you on the James Show. Coming up next, Lindsey Graham's funeral was today, and they had a big state funeral in D.C. at the National Cathedral. And I'm going to tell you why that kind of rubs me the wrong way. Not that, Lindsey Graham, we didn't want to go spit on his grave or anything. I just don't like the idea of these grandiose state funerals. And I'll try and explain myself next on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Yeah, let me tell you what I don't like about these big, grandiose state funerals. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. And no, I didn't like Lindsey Graham's politics. He seemed like a nice enough guy. I mean, I suppose. He's one of the more suspect members of the Senate. And my skepticism is drawn mainly because he disagreed with my politics so much. But that aside, everyone that I never met him, but I've met a lot of people who have met him. Everyone said nice things about him. So it's not like this guy doesn't deserve, some kind words for the people who loved him at a funeral. But this thing where we go to the National Cathedral and we have people like lie in the rotunda and they lie in wait, and then the president comes and speaks, and it's on TV, and there's a bunch of people there, and there's a big procession, and there's all kinds of pomps and circumstance. And then they're going to take his carcass back to the Carolinas, and they're going to have another one there where it's like the actual funeral that's just for his family and friends. Well, that's the real funeral. This thing in D.C. is just a show, and it's a show that I don't like. Hey, excuse me, before I start tearing it apart here, this is a report from WFAA.
Political leaders will remember late Senator Lindsey Graham today. A ceremony will be held this morning at the U.S. Capitol, followed by a funeral service at Washington National Cathedral. Graham's body will then be flown back to South Carolina for another funeral service and burial there. The Republican died 2 weeks ago from an aortic tear. He was 71 years old.
We're not supposed to do this. We're not supposed to be holding people in high regard like this. And when I say high regard, I don't mean like, oh, you're not supposed to think well of people. No, we're not supposed to celebrate and elevate and deify and treat them like some sort of king or some sort of noble. Are we doing this great state funeral for Isabella Gonzalez, who actually died in service of this country on the other side of the planet? Does she not deserve that just as much as Lindsey Graham? Well, most of us would say she probably deserves it more than Lindsey Graham. But we didn't always do this. We didn't always celebrate people. Our founding fathers didn't want to celebrate people. Our founding fathers didn't make Mount Rushmore with their faces on it. Someone else came back 130 years later and did that. When we first started having money, when we first printed our coinage and printed our paper bills in America, they did not have human beings on them. When we got a big old statue as a gift from France, did they send us a statue of George Washington? Did they send us a statue of Thomas Jefferson or even Ben Franklin? Who is on the Statue of Liberty? It's Lady Liberty. It's not a person. It's a concept. Where did Lady Liberty come from? Well, this is 1886. And at the time, Lady Liberty was actually on some of our money. Lady Liberty is something that had been seen in iconography in empires past. In fact, it's really interesting how the Romans did something similar. When the Romans started with their coinage, they put things like Lady Liberty on it, or like we have the Justice Lady was on some of our early coinage, where there was like eagles were a big player. The blindfolded lady with the scales was on there. There'd be like a pyramid with the eye on top of it. It was all symbolism. Why? Because we didn't celebrate people. We celebrated the ideas. And it was the ideas that made America, America. Not the fact that we have awesome men or George Washington or Teddy Roosevelt or Abraham Lincoln. It's because we admired and we deified these concepts of liberty, of justice, of freedom. We don't do that anymore. When we start worshiping people and stop worshiping these concepts, then it's easy to see how liberty isn't held up as some sort of great virtue anymore. Because now, how many of our struggles, at least internally in America in the modern times, are the classic conceit of trading liberty for safety? The whole COVID thing. We wouldn't have gone through the COVID lockdowns. We wouldn't have tolerated masks. We wouldn't have tolerated shutting down schools. We liberty, statues, liberty, monument, all these things. No, we came back after the fact, and now we make a monument to Martin Luther King, and then we'll make another monument over here to Rosa Parks, and then we'll make another monument to Washington, and then we'll make another monument, and now it's just all human beings. And it's not like Washington's not a good person. It's not like Martin Luther King Jr. is not a good person, but we lost something. And this is the continuance of that. What are we celebrating about Lindsey Graham for? Because one of our senators died? What did he do, actually? Was he a great stalwart for liberty? What is one Lindsey Graham accomplishment? Why are we celebrating this guy? We shouldn't. Also, I wanted to leave you on a fun note. Ann Coulter took a little shot at the WNBA for griping about Caitlin Clark. This is a fun, brutal 1 minute to end the show.
I could just say, as I have before, about people getting death threats or mean stuff online. Every public figure gets death threats. Only whine about it, i.e. Paul Krugman. Everyone gets death threats. It's a big country. They're crazy people. They hear your name. You could be in charge of, I don't know, your local town's flower show. And if your name is in the paper, you're probably going to get yourself a death threat. Point two, motto of the FBI is, if they write first, they're not coming. You never have to worry about death threats.
School almost back in session. We've got your shopping covered. Enter for your chance to win $1,000 in the National Back to School Shopping Spree, sponsored locally by Clarity Windows and Doors. Enter now at WBAP.com. If you need more James Show action after this, then go check out the podcast or some of the great video highlights I have put up on all the social medias. And stay put. Mark Levin's next on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.